Hejin looked at his tiny house with pride. It was the smallest home on Terra Station, but to him, it was perfect. The house was only 30 square meters, about the size of 3 parking spaces put together. But Hejin, his wife Mina, and their 7-year-old daughter Sunhai had everything they needed. Terra Station floated high above Earth, spinning slowly like a giant wheel in space. Through their small window, they could see the blue planet below. At night, they watched the city lights sparkle across Earth's dark side. During the day, they saw white clouds swirling over the oceans. Hejin worked as a maintenance engineer on the station. He fixed things that broke and made sure everything ran smoothly. His toolbox was special. It stuck to his belt with magnets, so his tools wouldn't float away when the station's gravity systems needed repair. Mina, his wife, was a xenobotanist. This meant she studied plants from other worlds. She had turned one wall of their tiny house into a garden. Green plants grew up the wall in neat rows, their leaves moving gently in the air from the ventilation system. The plants helped clean their air and provided fresh herbs for cooking. Mina said the plants made their house feel more like a home. Their daughter Sunhai thought their house was magical. Every piece of furniture could change into something else. Her bed folded into the wall during the day, turning her bedroom into a play area. The kitchen table could sink into the floor when they weren't using it. Even the chairs could fold flat and stick to the walls with magnets. Time for dinner. Mina called one evening. She was making kimchi stew, and the smell filled their small home. Hejin pressed a button, and the kitchen table rose from the floor. Sunhai helped by getting the bowls from a cabinet that rolled out from inside the wall. As they ate, Sunhai watched the stars through their window. "Dad, why do we have the smallest house on the station?" she asked, picking up some rice with her spoon. Hejin smiled. "Because we're smart," he said. "In a small house, everything is close. If I want to hug you or Mom, I only need to take 2 steps. If we want to have a family meeting, we don't have to shout across big rooms. And best of all, our house uses less power and air than bigger homes. That means we're helping the station save resources." Mina reached over and touched Sunhai's hand. "And in a small home, love fills up the space more quickly," she said. "Big homes can feel empty, but our home always feels full of love." Sunhai thought about this as she finished her stew. She looked around their tiny house, at the plants growing on the wall, at her father's tools hanging neatly by the door, at her mother's collection of alien plant samples stored in clear containers. Everything had its place, and everything was just right. Later that night, as Sunhai lay in her bed that had unfolded from the wall, she heard her parents talking quietly in the main room. The sound of their voices mixed with the gentle hum of the station's systems. Through her window, she could see Earth below, a beautiful blue marble in space. She felt safe and warm in their tiny house, floating among the stars. The smallest house on Terra Station might have been small in size, but it was big in all the ways that mattered. As Sunhai drifted off to sleep, she smiled, knowing she wouldn't want to live anywhere else in the whole solar system. The morning started like any other on Terra Station, until the announcement came over the speakers. "Attention all residents. We will be receiving our first diplomatic delegation from the Bright Star System today. Please continue your normal activities, but be prepared to welcome our guests." Hejin was checking the station's air recycling systems when he saw the alien ship arrive. It was beautiful, like a bubble made of glass and silver. The ship was huge, almost half the size of Terra Station itself. Through the clear parts of the ship, he could see large, empty rooms that seemed to go on forever. In the Kim family's tiny house, Mina was helping Sunhai get ready for school when they heard the soft hum of the alien ship docking. "Can we go see the aliens?" Sunhai asked, pressing her face against their window. "They're called the Bright Ones," Mina explained, straightening Sunhai's uniform. "They come from a planet much bigger than Earth, where they have lots of space. They're like tall, glowing people made of light." The station's main hall was prepared for the welcome ceremony. The Kim family watched from their video screen as the bright ones entered. They were just as Mina had described, tall beings that seemed to be made of gentle, flowing light. The leader of the delegation was called Ambassador Brightspeck. During the ceremony, Ambassador Brightspeck spoke in a voice that sounded like soft chimes. "We are honored to visit your station," they said through a translator. "But we are concerned about your living conditions. Our scans show that some of you live in spaces smaller than our cleaning closets." The station director tried to explain that humans were comfortable in small spaces, but the ambassador seemed worried. "We must inspect these living units," they announced. "It is our duty to ensure no sentient beings are suffering." Later that day, while Hee-jin was fixing a broken door, he overheard two bright ones talking. "These humans live like packed data crystals," one said. "How do they not go mad?" "Perhaps they are already mad," the other replied. "No sane species would choose to live in boxes." Hee-jin smiled to himself as he worked. He thought about his cozy home, about Sun-hee's laughter echoing in their small space, and about Mina's wall garden that made their home smell like spring on earth. That evening, as the Kim family ate dinner at their fold-out table, they received an unexpected message. Ambassador Brightspeck wanted to visit their home the next day. They had chosen the Kim's house because it was the smallest on the station, and they wanted to understand how humans could live in such spaces. "Can we show them how our furniture dances?" Sun-hee asked excitedly, referring to the way their furniture moved and transformed. "Of course," Hee-jin said. "We'll show them that a home's size isn't measured in meters, but in the happiness it holds." Mina looked around their small home with pride. "We'll show them that humans don't need big spaces to live well. We just need enough room for love to grow." As they prepared for bed that night, the alien ship glowed softly outside their window, its empty halls shining like starlight. Tomorrow, they would show the bright ones that sometimes the smallest homes could hold the biggest hearts. Sun-hee fell asleep wondering what the ambassador would think of her fold-away bed and her special corner where she kept her favorite books and toys. In her dreams, she imagined teaching the glowing aliens how to make pillow forts in small spaces, and she smiled in her sleep. The morning of Ambassador Brightspeck's visit arrived, and the Kim family was ready. Mina had made sure her wall garden looked its best. Hee-jin had polished all the moving parts of their transforming furniture. Sun-hee had carefully arranged her favorite books to show the ambassador. When the door chimed, they saw Ambassador Brightspeck's glowing form fill their doorway. The ambassador was so tall they had to bend down to enter. Two other officials followed, along with the station director, who looked nervous. "Welcome to our home," Mina said with a bow. The ambassador's light dimmed slightly, allowing them to see more clearly in the small space. "This is all of it?" Brightspeck asked, their voice chiming softly through the translator. They looked around the 30-square-meter home with what seemed like concern. Before anyone could answer, Sun-hee stepped forward. "Would you like a tour?" she asked, smiling brightly. "I know all the best parts of our house." The station director started to object, but Ambassador Brightspeck's light pulsed with interest. "Yes, small human. Show me your dwelling." Sun-hee began her tour confidently. "This is our entry area," she explained, pointing to the space near the door. "See these circles on the floor? They light up when we need to take off our shoes. And look." She pressed a panel, and a shoe rack emerged from the wall. "Our shoes sleep in the wall when we're not using them." The ambassador's light flickered with surprise. "The wall stores things. All our walls are helpful," Sun-hee said proudly. She led them to her mother's garden wall. "This is Mom's special place. The plants clean our air and make food. Some of them came from other planets, just like you." Mina stepped forward to explain how the hydroponic system worked. The ambassador moved closer to examine a flowering plant from Mars. "You bring other worlds into your small space?" they asked. "Yes," Mina said. "It helps us feel connected to the universe, even in our tiny home." Sun-hee continued the tour, showing how her bed folded into the wall, how the kitchen table rose from the floor, and how her father's tool cabinet could expand when needed. With each demonstration, the ambassador's light changed colors, showing their growing interest. "But where do you go when you need to be alone?" Bright Speck asked. "Our species requires vast spaces for proper thinking." "Son," he giggled, "I can show you my thinking spot." She led them to her corner, where she had hung soft lights, and created a small reading nook with cushions. "When I want to be alone, I make a fort with blankets. It's like having my own tiny room inside our tiny house." The ambassador's light pulsed with what seemed like understanding. They carefully lowered themselves to look into Sunhi's corner. "It is cozy," they said, using the human word carefully. "Cozy is when you feel warm and safe and happy," Sunhi explained. "Like when you wrap up in a blanket on a cold day, or when Mom and Dad hug me, or when we all sit together to read stories." Ambassador Bright Speck was quiet for a moment, their light shifting to a soft, warm gold. "Perhaps," they said slowly, "we have misunderstood what makes a space suitable for living. We thought bigger meant better, but you humans seem to have discovered something different." As the tour ended, Sunhei noticed that the ambassador's light had changed from its original bright white to a gentle, warm glow that reminded her of sunset. She didn't know it then, but her simple tour had just changed how an entire alien species thought about the meaning of home. After Sunhei's tour, Ambassador Bright Speck requested to learn more about the technical aspects of the Kim family's home. Hejin stepped forward, ready to demonstrate his expertise as a station maintenance engineer. "Our home operates like a carefully planned machine," Hejin explained, standing in the center of their living space. "Every centimeter serves multiple purposes. Would you like to see how it works?" The ambassador's light brightened with interest. "Please proceed," they said through the translator. Hejin began what he called the space-saving symphony. First, he pressed a series of buttons on a small control panel. The room transformed around them. The dining table descended into the floor, while storage compartments emerged from the ceiling. The walls shifted, revealing hidden cabinets and work surfaces. "Remarkable," one of the ambassador's assistants noted, their light flickering rapidly. "But surely this causes frequent mechanical failures." Hejin smiled and shook his head. "These systems are actually quite simple. They use basic physics principles and reliable mechanisms. Let me show you." He opened a maintenance panel, revealing the straightforward pulley and counterweight system that moved their furniture. The ambassador moved closer to examine the machinery. "In our culture, we believe complexity demonstrates advancement," they said. "Yet you achieve more function with less complexity." Hejin demonstrated how their bedroom transformed into a living room during the day. The beds folded smoothly into the walls, while comfortable seating emerged from beneath the floor. "The key is not to fight against the small space," he explained, "but to work with it." Mina added, "Our home is like a puzzle where every piece can change shape as needed. When we need a kitchen, we have a kitchen. When we need bedrooms, we have bedrooms." The ambassador watched as Hejin activated more transformations. Their bathroom expanded for use and contracted when not needed. Their closets rotated like carousels to access different sections of clothing. Even the ceiling held surprises, with retractable lighting that could create different moods. "The most important feature," Hejin said, pressing another button, "is our emergency system." The room quickly converted into a secure space, with reinforced walls and emergency supplies emerging from hidden compartments. In space, safety requires planning. Our small home can protect us from almost any emergency. Sunhai, who had been watching proudly, added, "And during emergencies, we're already close together, so we don't have to worry about finding each other." The ambassador's light pulsed thoughtfully. "We built our ships with vast, empty spaces because we thought they represented freedom," they said. "But your small home contains more possibilities than our largest chambers." Hejin demonstrated one final transformation. The ceiling panel shifted, revealing a clear dome that showed the stars above. Sometimes the best way to feel the vastness of space, he said softly, is to view it from a cozy place surrounded by those you love. The ambassador and their assistants stood silently, their light dimming to a gentle glow as they gazed at the stars. In that moment, they seemed to understand something profound about humanity. It wasn't just about making small spaces work, it was about creating homes that brought families closer together. As the demonstration ended, Ambassador Bright Speck turned to Hejin. "Your species has mastered the art of turning limitations into advantages," they said. "Perhaps we have much to learn from your space-saving symphony." As Ambassador Bright Speck and their assistants continued their visit to the Kim family's home, the station's lights suddenly flickered. A moment later, a soft alarm sounded through the corridors of Terra Station. "Attention all residents," the station's computer announced. "We are experiencing a temporary power reduction. Emergency systems are functioning normally. Please remain where you are until full power is restored." Hejin checked his maintenance tablet. "The station's main power system is adjusting to a solar flare," he explained to their guests. "It will take about an hour for everything to return to normal." The ambassador's light dimmed with concern. "Should we return to our ship?" they asked, their chimes becoming slightly higher-pitched. "You are welcome to stay here with us," Mina offered. "Our home has excellent temperature regulation, even during power reductions." As if to demonstrate this point, while the corridor outside their door grew cooler, the Kim family's small home maintained a comfortable temperature. The ambassador and their assistants noticed this difference immediately. "How is this possible?" one of the assistants asked, their light pulsing with curiosity. "The power levels are significantly reduced." Hejin smiled and explained. "Small spaces are easier to keep warm. It's like the difference between heating a cup of water and heating a pool. Our home needs very little energy to stay comfortable." Sunhae added to her father's explanation. "It's like when I make a blanket fort. Inside the fort stays warm and cozy, even when the room is cool." The ambassador moved around the space, their light creating gentle patterns on the walls. "In our culture, we believe that vast spaces demonstrate prosperity," they said. "But here, in this small space, we feel—" "What is the word?" "Cozy," Sunhae suggested. "Yes, cozy," the ambassador agreed. "The temperature is pleasant, but it is more than that. There is a different kind of warmth here." Mina prepared hot tea for everyone, using special cups that could adapt to the Bright One's form of drinking. As they sat together in the warm, softly lit room, the ambassador noticed how the family stayed close to each other, sharing stories and laughter. "On our ships," the ambassador said, "we often lose track of each other in the large spaces. Sometimes it takes hours to find someone you wish to speak with. But here, everyone is always within reach." The power reduction continued, but inside the Kim's home, no one really noticed. Mina's wall garden helped maintain the oxygen levels, and their efficient systems kept everything running smoothly. Even with minimal power, their home remained a comfortable haven. "We designed our ships and buildings to show our technological advancement," one of the assistants noted. "But perhaps there is advanced technology in simplicity as well." As they waited for the power to return to normal, Sunhae taught the Bright Ones how to play board games at their small table. The ambassador, who had never sat so close to others for an extended time, discovered that proximity could create a special kind of comfort. When the station's full power finally returned, the ambassador's light had changed to a warm, gentle glow that matched the atmosphere in the Kim's home. They had learned that warmth came not just from power systems, but from the closeness of a family sharing a small, well-loved space. News of Ambassador Bright Speck's visit to the Kim family's home spread quickly through Terra Station. The next morning, more alien diplomats requested to see the smallest house on the station. The station director organized proper visits, and soon the Kim family found themselves hosting guests from across the galaxy. A group of tall, crystalline beings from the spiral arm were particularly interested in Mina's wall garden. "Your plants grow sideways," they observed through their translators. "On our world, everything must grow up or down. This is most efficient. Mina explained how she had adapted Earth's climbing plants to grow in any direction. In small spaces, she said, we must think in all directions. Every wall can be a garden, every ceiling can be storage, and every floor can hide furniture. He-Jin found himself giving engineering tours to alien technical experts. They were amazed by how simple mechanisms could make a space so adaptable. A group of floating orb-like beings spent 3 hours studying how the family's dining table rose from the floor. Your species uses such basic principles, one of the orb beings said, its surface rippling with interest. Yet the results are more practical than our quantum-folded living pods. Sunhai became an unexpected star among the visitors. She showed alien children who came with their parents how to build blanket forts and create cozy reading nooks in small corners. The children, despite their different shapes and sizes, all understood the simple joy of having a special small space of their own. The station director noticed something interesting happening. The aliens who visited the Kim's home started looking at all of Terra Station differently. They stopped seeing the human living spaces as cramped and started seeing them as clever and comfortable. You humans have mastered something we never considered, a diplomat with 6 eyes said during one visit. You don't just survive in small spaces. You make them better than big spaces. The Kim family's influence spread beyond the alien visitors. Other families on the station began asking Jin for advice about making their homes more efficient. Maina started teaching classes about growing gardens in small spaces. Even Sunhai helped other children organize their rooms using her space-saving ideas. One evening, as the family sat together for dinner, Ambassador Bright Speck returned with an announcement. Your home has taught us an important lesson, they said, their light glowing warmly. We have always thought that more space meant more progress. But you have shown us that true progress is making the best use of what you have. The ambassador explained that the Bright Ones were already redesigning parts of their ship. They were creating smaller, cozier spaces where crew members could feel more connected. They had even started their first vertical garden, inspired by Mina's wall of plants. Sometimes the smallest things can teach the biggest lessons, Mina said, smiling at their glowing guest. Yes, the ambassador agreed, their light pulsing gently. And sometimes the smallest home can hold the largest wisdom. 3 months after the first alien visits, the Kim family received an exciting message from Ambassador Bright Speck. The Bright Ones had redesigned their diplomatic ships based on what they learned from the smallest house on Terra Station. He-Jin, Mina, and Sunhai were invited to see these changes through a special video connection to the ambassador's ship. As they watched their screen, they saw something amazing. The huge, empty halls had been transformed into smaller, more practical spaces. We have created what we call comfort pods throughout our ships, Ambassador Bright Speck explained. Their light glowed with pride as they showed the family around. Each pod is designed like your home, with furniture that moves and walls that serve many purposes. The camera moved through the ship, showing rooms that looked very different from before. Instead of vast, empty spaces, there were cozy areas where the glowing Bright Ones gathered in small groups. Some were reading, others were working, and many were simply enjoying being close to each other. Our ship now uses 40% less energy, the ambassador said, and something unexpected has happened. Our crew members report feeling happier and more connected to each other. Sunhai spotted something familiar in one of the rooms. Look, she exclaimed. They have blanket forts. Indeed, the Bright Ones had created their own version of blanket forts using sheets of light-filtering material. Young Bright Ones could be seen glowing contentedly in these small, cozy spaces. The changes spread beyond the diplomatic ships. Other alien species began asking for advice about living in smaller spaces. The crystalline beings created tiny growing chambers that used space more efficiently than their old vertical farms. The orb beings developed new living pods that focused on comfort rather than size. Mina received requests from across the galaxy for information about her wall garden design. She wrote a simple guide about growing plants in small spaces, which was translated into 27 alien languages. Even species that didn't need plants for food wanted gardens because they made spaces feel more like home. He-Jin's engineering skills were also in high demand. He helped create a standard system for making furniture that could transform and move. He called it the Small Space Symphony System, and it became popular on space stations and ships throughout known space. One day, a message arrived from a distant space station. They had built an entire section using the Kim family's ideas. The station sent pictures showing how they had transformed their big, cold corridors into warm, friendly neighborhoods of small homes. "Your little home has started a big change in how we think about living in space," Ambassador Bright Speck told the family during another call. "We used to believe that bigger meant better. Now we understand that cozy is a universal feeling." Sun Hai, who had been listening quietly, said something that made everyone think. "Maybe we weren't just sharing our home with the aliens," she said thoughtfully. "Maybe we were sharing our way of caring for each other." The ambassador's light pulsed warmly at her words. "Young human, you are wise," they said. "In learning to live in small spaces, we have learned to live more closely with each other. And that may be the most important lesson of all." 1 year after Ambassador Bright Speck's first visit to Terra Station, the Kim family received a special invitation. The Bright Ones had created a museum on their home world dedicated to human living concepts, and they wanted the family to see it through a live video connection. Early one morning, the Kim family gathered in front of their video screen. As the connection opened, they saw something remarkable. The museum was built to look exactly like their tiny house, but much larger so visitors could walk through it and learn about each feature. "Welcome to the Museum of Human Innovation," Ambassador Bright Speck said, their light glowing with pleasure. "This is now our most popular cultural center. People come from all over our world to learn about your way of living." The camera moved through the museum, showing large displays that explained how humans made small spaces work well. There was an entire room dedicated to Mina's wall garden, with scientists studying how to grow plants in different directions. Another section showed He-Jin's furniture systems, with young Bright Ones excitedly making tables appear and disappear into the floor. But the most popular exhibit, the ambassador said, moving to a special area, is the Sun Hai section. Here, they had created a place where visitors could learn about making cozy spaces. Children of all species could build their own blanket forts and reading nooks. Sun Hai watched with wide eyes as alien children played in spaces inspired by her ideas. "They're making the forts just like I showed them," she said happily. The museum had changed the way the Bright Ones built their cities. Instead of competing to create the biggest buildings, they now worked to make comfortable spaces where people could feel close to each other. Their massive towers had been reformed into collections of cozy communities. "Your tiny house has taught us that the measure of a home isn't its size," the ambassador explained, "but how it brings people together." He-Jin noticed something interesting about the ambassador's appearance. Their light, which used to be bright and harsh, now glowed with a warm, gentle radiance that reminded him of sunset on Earth. The other Bright Ones had also started choosing warmer, softer light colors. "We have received messages from 57 different worlds," the ambassador continued. "They all want to learn about human-style living. Your small home has started a movement across the galaxy." Mina's garden design had spread to space stations everywhere. He-Jin's engineering ideas were being used on ships of all sizes. Even Sun He's simple concept of cozy spaces had become famous throughout the stars. "We once thought humans were strange for living in such small spaces," Ambassador Bright Speck said. "Now we understand that you had discovered something wonderful. You knew that the best way to reach the stars was to start from a cozy home." As the video call ended, the Kim family sat together in their tiny house. Through their window, they could see Earth below and the stars beyond. Their small home had taught the galaxy a big lesson about what really mattered in life. "Our house may be the smallest on Terra Station," Sun Hai said, hugging her parents, "but its heart is as big as the universe." Hajin and Mina smiled, knowing that their daughter was right. Their tiny home had shown the galaxy that the greatest space of all was the space in people's hearts, where love and understanding could grow without limits.